Have you ever looked at your lab results, seen your creatinine creeping higher, and thought, how is this possible? I'm eating carefully, cutting salt, avoiding red meat. What else can I even do? If that sounds even a little like your situation, you're not alone. Every week I hear stories just like this from patients who feel they're doing everything right, yet their numbers keep climbing silently in the background. And that's exactly why this conversation matters more than ever. Because while you may feel you're being careful, the truth is far more unsettling. Many kidney patients in America are unknowingly eating specific proteins that accelerate kidney decline faster than high blood pressure ever could. According to Dr. Richard Hale, these hidden dietary mistakes are one of the leading reasons creatinine rises, even when you think your diet is clean. And the most dangerous part is that the damage doesn't happen loudly. It builds slowly, quietly in the background, until your next blood test suddenly delivers a number that drops your stomach through the floor. But it doesn't have to reach that point, not for you or for anyone trying to protect the kidney function they still have left. Because if food can quietly push your kidneys toward dialysis, then the right food can just as quietly pull them back from the edge. The real problem isn't protein itself, but choosing the wrong kind without realizing the price your kidneys pay for it. And once you understand which proteins strain your kidneys and which ones support them, everything about your health trajectory can change. So today, I'm going to guide you through the 6 proteins that push creatinine up and the 4 you should rely on if you want to protect your kidneys naturally and consistently. And as we unfold each one, you'll start to see a pattern that might finally explain why your numbers haven't moved the way you hoped, and more importantly, how to turn that around starting today. The first protein that silently drives creatinine higher for so many Americans is turkey bacon, a product that looks safe, feels familiar, and is marketed as the healthy swap. But trust me, after years listening to patients in my clinic, I've learned how misleading that label can be. One man from Ohio, a retired truck driver, told me he switched to turkey bacon because he wanted to do the right thing after his doctor warned him about kidney decline. He ate it proudly every morning, believing he was protecting his health, until his next lab results came back with a creatinine spike that left him terrified. And when we dug deeper, the truth became impossible to ignore. Turkey bacon isn't just turkey. It's packed with sodium nitrates and inorganic phosphate additives, exactly the kind of chemicals the kidneys absorb almost instantly. Nephrology studies show these phosphates can be absorbed at rates up to 90%, forcing the kidneys to filter more aggressively with every serving. The damage doesn't scream or shout. It creeps in quietly through swelling, rising blood pressure, and a filtration system that gets weaker month after month. And that's what makes turkey bacon so dangerous. It doesn't taste salty enough to alert you, and the package will never tell you what's happening inside your bloodstream. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because there is another factor working silently in the background. Another healthy-looking protein that can overload your kidneys even faster. And most people who eat it have no idea what it's doing to their lab numbers. And that healthy-looking protein I mentioned is red lentils, a food that surprises almost every patient I work with. They look innocent, plant-based, high-fiber, low-fat, and they show up on nearly every heart-healthy or clean-eating list online. But the truth is very different for someone with weakened kidneys. One of my patients, a retired math teacher from Arizona, switched to red lentil soup 3 times a week because he believed it would help lower his cholesterol. But instead of feeling better, he began experiencing fatigue, heavy legs, and an unusual fluttering in his chest. When we checked his labs, his potassium had climbed dangerously high, and his creatinine followed right behind it. Red lentils contain significantly higher levels of potassium and phosphorus than most people realize, and when the kidneys can no longer filter those minerals effectively, the body absorbs them quickly. Clinical data shows that potassium spikes from foods like red lentils can increase the risk of irregular heart rhythms, muscle weakness, and rapid creatinine rises, especially when cooked with tomatoes or spinach, which only add more potassium to the mix. And that's what makes red lentils so deceptive. They feel like a healthy choice, but for a kidney patient, they can quietly push the body into dangerous territory without a single warning sign. But even understanding this isn't enough, because another protein, one far more common in American kitchens, can strain your kidneys even faster, and most people don't suspect it at all. And that surprisingly common protein hiding in plain sight is the classic American hot dog. It shows up at barbecues, ball games, school events, even quick lunches on busy days. It's cheap, easy, familiar, and that's exactly why it catches kidney patients off guard. One woman I worked with, a grandmother from Michigan, told me she only ate hot dogs once in a while, usually when her grandkids visited. But even that was enough to trigger a noticeable rise in her creatinine over just 2 months. When we reviewed her diet, the reason became crystal clear. Hot dogs aren't just meat. They're a chemical cocktail of sodium nitrates, artificial phosphates, and heavily oxidized fats. These additives force the kidneys into overdrive because the body absorbs inorganic phosphates far faster than natural ones. Studies from U.S. nephrology clinics show that processed meats can raise inflammation markers by more than 30%, weakening kidney tissue and reducing filtration efficiency. And the worst part is that the damage doesn't feel dramatic at first. It starts with subtle fatigue, puffy hands, a little pressure in the lower back, symptoms most people mistake for stress or aging. But inside the kidneys, inflammation is building like a slow-burning fire, getting hotter with every bite. That's why hot dogs can be so dangerous. They seem harmless, but they quietly create the perfect storm for rising creatinine. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because there is another factor. One even more deceptive, often sitting right on pantry shelves across America, and its impact on kidney health is far greater than most people ever imagine. And that deceptively harmless pantry protein is whey protein isolate, a powder millions of Americans keep on their shelves without realizing how aggressively it can strain weakened kidneys. It's marketed as clean, pure, and muscle-friendly, which makes many people assume it's safe, especially if they're trying to lose weight or keep their energy up. But one of my patients, a former construction worker from Texas, learned the hard way. He started drinking whey isolate shakes every morning, thinking it was a smart, low-fat way to get protein without stressing his heart. Instead, his creatinine climbed so quickly, his doctor thought the lab made a mistake. But there was no mistake at all. Whey isolate is an ultra-concentrated protein, stripped of natural fats, fibers, and antioxidants, leaving behind a dense load of amino acids that turn into nitrogenous waste the kidneys must filter immediately. Research from renal nutrition studies shows that concentrated proteins like whey isolate can nearly double the amount of waste the kidneys must process within hours of consumption. For someone with healthy kidneys, the body can keep up. But for someone with even mild kidney decline, it's like forcing a worn-out engine to climb a hill with a trailer attached. Eventually, something gives out. And what makes whey isolate so dangerous is that it feels healthy, tastes harmless, and often replaces real meals, meaning the kidneys face this pressure day after day. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because another protein, one hiding inside a food many Americans consider wholesome, can overload your kidneys even faster, and nearly everyone underestimates the risk. And the next protein, more dangerous than most people ever imagine, is canned black beans, a staple in many American homes that seems harmless because it's plant-based, convenient, and recommended in countless healthy pantry lists. But one of my patients, a 62-year-old woman from Colorado, learned just how misleading that can be. She switched to canned black beans, thinking it was a smart vegetarian option, something light and kidney-friendly. Within weeks, though, she noticed her ankles swelling by late afternoon and her blood pressure creeping higher, even though she hadn't changed anything else in her diet. When we looked closer, the issue became painfully clear. Canned black beans sit in a brine loaded with sodium, often over 400 milligrams per serving. And because the beans naturally contain potassium, the combination becomes a double burden for weakened kidneys. Renal nutrition research shows that high sodium, high potassium pairings can impair filtration efficiency by nearly 30%, especially when consumed regularly. And the tricky part is that the flavor doesn't scream salty, so people assume it's harmless and eat it more often than they realize. Even rinsing helps, but it doesn't remove enough of the hidden load to completely protect struggling kidneys. And that's what makes canned beans so deceptive. They wear the costume of a healthy food while quietly pushing creatinine higher in the background. But knowing this alone isn't enough because there is another factor, another protein loved across America that can overload your kidneys even faster. And you might be eating it without realizing the price your numbers are paying. And that final protein, the one Americans love the most, yet the kidneys fear the most, is beef steak. It's comforting, familiar, tied to family cookouts, weekend dinners, and moments that feel warm and ordinary. But for someone with declining kidney function, steak becomes far more than a simple meal. One of my longtime patients, a 70-year-old veteran from North Carolina, told me he ate steak only on special nights, maybe once every 2 weeks. Yet every time he did, he noticed a heaviness in his lower back, a deep fatigue the next morning, and lab results that slowly crept in the wrong direction. And he's not alone. Beef steak is packed with purines, phosphorus, and dense nitrogen-producing proteins that the kidneys must break down immediately. Renal studies show that high purine meats can spike uric acid levels fast, inflame kidney tissue, and increase creatinine far more aggressively than poultry or fish. And here's the part most people never consider. High-temperature cooking, like grilling, searing, or broiling, creates oxidized compounds that place even more pressure on weakened filtration systems. That's why so many patients feel off the day after a steak dinner without realizing the biological storm happening inside their kidneys. Steak isn't dangerous because it tastes rich. It's dangerous because the kidneys have to clean up every chemical byproduct it leaves behind. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because there is another factor, one that flips the entire story. While these 6 proteins quietly push creatinine higher, 4 other proteins can actually support, protect, and lighten the load on your kidneys. And that's where everything begins to change. So after seeing how easily the wrong proteins can push your kidneys toward exhaustion, it's only natural to feel a little overwhelmed. But the story doesn't end with danger, because just as certain foods can quietly raise your creatinine, others can just as quietly lower the burden, protect your filtration system, and help you feel stronger day by day. And that's where the real hope begins, with the 4 proteins your kidneys actually love. And the first protein your kidneys genuinely appreciate is the simplest one of all, egg whites. They're clean, pure, and remarkably easy for weakened kidneys to process, which is why so many nephrologists refer to them as the gold standard of kidney-safe protein. One of my patients, a 74-year-old grandmother from Illinois, struggled with morning fatigue and swelling, even though she had cut out red meat completely. When we introduced egg whites into her breakfast, just a soft steam-cooked portion with a slice of ginger, her energy returned within weeks, and her next lab results showed a small but meaningful drop in creatinine. What makes egg whites so powerful is that they deliver high-quality protein without the hidden burdens that strain filtration. Almost no phosphorus, no cholesterol, and minimal sodium. Clinical studies show that the biological value of egg white protein reaches 100%, meaning the body can use nearly every bit of it without producing excessive waste. And because egg whites create far fewer nitrogen byproducts than meats or protein powders, the kidneys can focus on healing rather than scrambling to clean up metabolic overload. It's a gentle boost that supports muscle strength, stabilizes albumin levels, and lightens the load on your filtration system all at once. But don't underestimate them because they seem basic. Sometimes the simplest foods create the most remarkable results for kidney patients. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because there is another factor, another protein that delivers benefits just as powerful, and it often goes unnoticed in the very homes of the people who need it most. And that next kidney-friendly protein, the one that quietly supports healing in ways most people never expect, is tofu. Gentle, soft, and surprisingly powerful, tofu is one of the few plant proteins that gives your kidneys the amino acids they need without overwhelming them with excess waste. I remember a patient from California, a 65-year-old woman living alone, who had tried cutting out all animal protein because she feared it was harming her kidneys. But instead of feeling better, her energy dropped, her hair thinned, and her creatinine barely moved. When we added tofu back into her meals, baked lightly, seasoned with low-sodium vegetable broth, her strength began returning within 2 weeks, and her swelling noticeably decreased. What makes tofu so unique is its low phosphorus content and the presence of natural isoflavones, compounds shown in renal nutrition studies to reduce inflammation and support healthier filtration. Compared to other proteins, tofu produces significantly fewer nitrogenous byproducts, meaning the kidneys can focus on staying stable rather than fighting metabolic overload. And because it absorbs flavor so easily, it can replace heavier proteins without leaving you feeling deprived. The key is preparing it gently. No deep frying, no salty sauces, just clean seasoning and mindful cooking. Tofu isn't just a protein source. For many kidney patients, it becomes a quiet ally that works behind the scenes day after day. But knowing this alone isn't enough because there is another factor, another protein option that offers strength and gentleness in perfect balance. And it may already be sitting in your freezer right now. And that protein sitting quietly in so many freezers, the one that balances strength with gentleness better than most foods, is tilapia. It doesn't shout for attention the way salmon or tuna does, but for kidney patients, that gentleness is exactly what makes it powerful. I remember working with a 59-year-old man from Georgia who loved fish but felt overwhelmed trying to decide what was safe. Every article he read listed different best choices, and the confusion kept him stuck. When he finally tried switching to tilapia, simply baked with lemon and herbs, something remarkable happened. His digestion felt easier, his swelling reduced, and his next lab results showed a small but promising improvement in his creatinine. Tilapia provides high-quality protein with far fewer purines and significantly lower phosphorus than popular fish like salmon, cod, or tuna. Renal studies show that low purine proteins help reduce uric acid buildup and minimize inflammatory stress on the kidneys, allowing filtration to stabilize instead of being pushed past its limits. And because tilapia cooks cleanly, no heavy oils, no intense marinades, it delivers nourishment without hidden burdens. It's the kind of protein that quietly supports your strength while letting your kidneys rest, a balance that's rare and invaluable for anyone with reduced kidney function. And that's why so many patients who switch to tilapia feel a new sense of lightness they can't fully explain at first. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because there is another factor, one final protein that brings a unique kind of support no other food can match, and it often surprises patients the moment they try it. And the final protein your kidneys truly appreciate is one that rarely gets the spotlight, yet quietly delivers what no other grain can: quinoa. Unlike regular rice or pasta, quinoa carries all 9 essential amino acids, making it a complete protein that supports your muscles without overwhelming your kidneys in the process. One of my patients, a 67-year-old man from Oregon, told me he felt drained every afternoon, even after cleaning up most of his diet. When he replaced half his usual rice portion with quinoa, lightly cooked in unsalted vegetable broth, he noticed a steady rise in energy and a calmer, more stable feeling in his body, and his lab results reflected that shift. What makes quinoa so valuable is its low sodium content, gentle carb profile, and rich supply of magnesium and fiber. Renal nutrition research shows that high-fiber, low-potassium grains help reduce nitrogenous waste, stabilize blood sugar, and ease filtration pressure, giving the kidneys the breathing room they desperately need. And unlike heavier proteins, quinoa doesn't force your filtration system into overdrive. Instead, it offers clean fuel that supports recovery, reduces inflammation, and keeps your energy steady throughout the day. It's a small change that creates a surprisingly big ripple in overall kidney comfort. And when paired with steamed vegetables or tilapia, it becomes a complete kidney-friendly meal that's both satisfying and soothing. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because there is another factor, something that ties all 4 proteins together and determines whether they truly help your kidneys or simply blend into your routine without creating the healing you deserve. So after hearing all this, I want you to take a deep breath and remember one thing. Kidney health isn't about perfection. It's about small, steady decisions that move you in the right direction. You don't need to change everything overnight. You don't need to fear every meal. You simply need to understand your body, make wiser choices, and give your kidneys the chance to breathe again. And trust me, the fact that you're here, listening, learning, and taking your health seriously, that alone already puts you miles ahead of where you were yesterday. And if today's video helped you understand your kidneys even just a little better, then please do one thing for yourself. Save this video so you can come back to it when you need a reminder. Kidney care is a journey, not a one-time lesson. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. I share practical, science-based kidney guidance every week, and I never want you to miss the information that could protect your health, your energy, and your independence. Sometimes one tip at the right moment can change everything. Because despite what your lab numbers may look like right now, there is always hope. Kidneys can stabilize, swelling can go down, creatinine can improve, and people who once felt discouraged often find themselves getting stronger day by day when they finally understand what their body needs. You deserve that possibility too. You deserve clarity, confidence, and the chance to feel like yourself again. So keep learning, keep taking small steps, and stay with me on this journey. Your kidneys are worth fighting for, and you're not alone in this.